Hi there, Chris from TotallyEV, and today I'm joined by Allan. Allan is the team principal of Audi Sports at Formula E. Allan, thank you very much for joining us on this interview and taking time. I know you guys are getting prepped for the season to recommence, obviously due to what's happened with coronavirus. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Chris. And also thanks for Totally EV for keeping us up to date on what's going on in the wider scheme of things as well. Because as you say right now, we're very much focused on the end of the season in Berlin. So our full concentration is on those 6 races coming up.
Brilliant. So, Allan, what I'm going to do is just for people who might not know the Scottish legend that you are, if you could give a little bit of a background as to who you are and, of course, how you have influenced Audi sports, specifically in Formula E, and going forwards, what's your role within Audi?
Well, if I rewind right back to the very beginning, I come from Dumfries in the southwest of Scotland. It's actually just along the road from one of my very good friends, David Coulthard. We actually grew up at the same time, and Dario Franchitti a little bit in the other side of the country. But at the end, I'm a racing driver through and through. Grew up in karting in the UK, moved into car racing in the mid-'80s, back when you had a gear stick and you had to heel and toe and do all of these things. And then progressed through to Formula One and sports cars. But really, I made my name in sports cars, and that was around about Le Mans 24 Hours and also the various other championships, and joined Audi in 2000. So I'm coming up to my 21st birthday with Audi next year.
Incredible.
And in those years with Audi, then it's been a fantastic time for me, both as a racing driver, because it heralded Le Mans 24-hour wins, it heralded a World Championship, American Le Mans Series titles, and various other things, and some fantastic people to work with. At the same time, when I stopped my racing career, which was in 2013, my last race, I actually think it's quite a nice position that my last race, crossing the line, driving the car, was to win the World Championship. And that was the last time I sat in a racing car in an event. And at that point, I moved into other roles within Audi, and it was one of the points when Formula E came up. Electrification was already started. We had started that with e-tron in our Le Mans program, but a full battery electric vehicle was coming up in Formula E. And I took over as team principal of our team when we went in fully in season 4. And so I've seen the car industry, but also the racing industry through different sets of eyes. The son of a car dealer, me as a racing driver, but also then as an ambassador and now as a team principal. But the one thing about it is love the cars, love the sport. And I've been very fortunate that I've been able to do it with some people that have had fantastic relationships all the way through.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And a little bit of a background as to if people don't know who you are. And of course, I know a lot of people will know your career, illustrious career in Le Mans 24. So I was actually going to allude to Le Mans 24. It's a little bit off sort of Formula E, but do you see that also shifting in terms of electrification and further down the line being, because obviously Le Mans 24 requires the car to run for a long period of time, whereas Formula E is kind of like a constraint time. Do you think that Le Mans 24 might shift to a fully electrified powertrain and indeed a battery unit?
I think if we go back one step, I think motorsport has got some key categories, and they always have to evolve with the market. And we always, as motorsport, and as one of the points of us in Audi, is to be ahead of the market, developing the technology for the future, what's going to be coming to the road cars, preparing the market in some respects. And Le Mans is part of that. And we used it very much as part of that, whether it be FSI direct injection, whether it be laser lights on the Audi R8, what ultralight technology, and also e-tron. And so electrification's already started in there, and it's in there now with hybridization. But going to a full electric car, some people have thought about it. They've been looked at it, but nobody's actually gone there. And I don't think the technology is right for it at this moment in time. But you know how quickly EV technology is moving forward. You know how quickly We're learning and understanding how to improve what we've got, and it's in big leaps and bounds. It's not small incremental changes. And so in that respect, I think it's something that you can see in the future, but it's not on the current horizon, shall we say. And our current horizon is clearly on Formula E, because that is where we can race our battery electric car. That's where we can develop our powertrain, and we can actually bring something to market as well from it.
Absolutely. And speaking about that, the powertrain has evolved from the Gen 1 to the Gen 2 car. How has that impacted Audi in terms of, obviously with motorsport, there's always needs of redeveloping or redesigning, even when it comes to, I mean, in different motorsports, when it comes to aerodynamics, I know it's somewhat limited in terms of Formula E, given the chassis somewhat provided to every manufacturer. How has that impacted you guys, as in the past, from the Gen 1 to Gen 2? And then that also impacted from, as far as I'm aware, that changed from the Audi powertrain itself, and moving forwards to the Gen 3 vehicle.
Well, first of all, I think the regulations are actually a good balance. You're very correct. The focus is on the drivetrain. And so therefore, that is what we develop effectively: the inverter, the electric motor, the gearbox, and the brake-by-wire systems. And so in that respect, that's our real focus. And as much as I think it would be performance-wise positive if it was open regulation like it was in Le Mans for us, because we know how to build batteries. We've done it already. We know how to build chassis to the nth degree. We have done it already. We know aerodynamics inside out, and we know electric motors. But for the championship, that is not the right model. The right model is to keep it controlled and keep it very, very focused on the electric technologies. And so that has been, I would say, one of the things that all manufacturers have agreed on, and a roadmap that goes, as you say, from Gen 1, which was a battery that could last maybe 20 minutes, and a limited performance on the actual e-motor. 180 kilowatts was our maximum power. And then for Gen 2, the battery changed, and the McLaren battery came in, which had double the energy. So we were able to do a complete race distance. But at the same time, we went up to 250 kilowatts in qualifying. So there's a big step in performance. Visually, there was a huge step, because it stopped looking like a kind of another single-seater and looked like a Formula E unique. That is its DNA trademark car. But still, again, keeping away from aero development, apart from aero efficiency, but pure downforce development, because that wasn't what we wanted to achieve. Now, we're in the middle of Gen 2, and we're actually just preparing for this final series of races in Berlin. But at the same time, we're preparing for Season 7, starting in 2021, where we will have a new electric drivetrain in our Season 7 car. And so there's a lot of work going on in tandem. And during the process of that, then I would say the main focus for the future is more on the software development than necessarily the hardware. Because the hardware, we are very, very efficient right now. And so therefore, it's more about software. How do you regenerate more energy, get that back into the battery to use again, and understand the changing parameters that you do in motorsport, extremely hot races like in Santiago in Chile, or the very cold races or the wet ones, and how the whole principle of the systems work and how you maximize them there. And that's through the last part of Gen 2. Gen 3, that's another story. That'll be another step up to 350 kilowatts. So it's going to be quicker again, a smaller, lighter car. And then the whole process keeps on going that way. But it's very managed, and it's at a correct, balanced level, especially now, of keeping that focus on the drivetrain technology, allowing us to show as Audi what we can do. But at the same time, making sure that we've got some, well, what I can only classify as massively intense and difficult races to win, because they're at such a high competition level with so many good teams and drivers out there.
Absolutely. And in speaking about that, actually, in terms of you said about the powertrain, do you see pit stops coming in? I know in Gen 1 you had a change of car, if I'm not mistaken, and in Gen 2 that went away, as you said, because you can do a full race. People say that potentially a pit stop with fast charging, obviously that will depend on technology. Do you think that is something that you might be personally interested in watching or being part of, or do you feel that no, it's much better when you're doing a single on a single charge all the way around throughout the race?
I think it depends. There's been different storylines as well developing for the championship as well as for us manufacturers through the course of the years. And there's definitely a big step forward when we went to, the one race, one car in so many different areas. Just carbon footprint, if you want to just take a point on that. So we've moved forward a lot. I think that, I've got an e-tron sitting outside, and charging quickly is an important part, and it's a big development as well that's coming in the actual living with your e-tron every day. And so that's a really cool part, and to see motorsport reflecting it, I think, is a good thing. I personally, in Gen 3, would be quite interested to throw open the whole idea. Instead of just thinking, well, I've got a fast charger, how about I stick it in the middle of a race to create a pit stop? To actually look at your whole event from the start of the day to the end of the day and think about what you can now do. Because the good thing with EV technology is that you've got a platform that you can change and adapt so much easier than a traditional platform. And I mean this platform of the car, but that also then comes into the actual platform of the event as well, and what you're trying to do. And so therefore, I think it's worthwhile looking as technology is evolving in the car and also out of the car, how we can then make the product, the actual event, just that little bit better, how we can step it apart and separate it so that, again, we're working on what we need for the future. And so I'm all for that, 100% all for that. But right now, Gen 3 has just been kind of finalized, and it is a little bit far down the line for us to get too many ideas on it. We've got last part of Berlin, we've got Season 7 and Season 8 coming up before we get to Gen 3.
So it's still a while. So in speaking about the current generation of vehicles, and of course your involvement right now in Formula E, I have to allude to the suspension of Daniel, obviously one of your drivers, one of your key drivers, and obviously he's been part of Audi Formula E's team for quite a while. Do you think that's going to impact your season? I know you have to be a bit diplomatic and everything about it, but I mean, do you think it's going to impact your season, given that obviously his credentials and how he's helped essentially win for Audi Formula E's team?
Yeah, Audi's been part of APT for a long time, and APT has been part of Audi for a long time. And I say APT, I mean the team, APT. And Daniel, when Formula E started, he's been in from the start, and he's been part of our program since Season 4 as official factory driver. And clearly what happened in lockdown was not envisaged by anybody. And ultimately, it has impacted on us, as you say. It's impacted insofar as in a mid-season, we have to have a change of driver. That's not something that we plan. It's very difficult to actually bring someone in and give them the experience, especially when as a team we're fighting for the title. And so therefore, we've tried to give Rennie Rast, who is going to race for us in Berlin, as much time as possible. He knows the team well, because he's raced for Audi for many years and won 2 DTM titles for Audi. And in fact, is racing this weekend in Spa in the first DTM race of 2020. So, in that, I would say he's reasonably plug and play, but for sure, it will make life a little bit tougher for us in Berlin. But, unfortunately, what happened, and therefore we've had to deal with it. And it's the same for Daniel. Personally, I was disappointed that it happened, but that's the way things are. Now we go to Berlin with Rennie, and we go there very much trying to support him. And he's on the simulator today as we're doing this Zoom interview. He's on the sim, and I've just received text from him and Lucas talking about how well it's going. But simulation is one thing, racing cars are a different one. And so therefore, we're very much looking forward to having him as part of our package for Berlin. And I'm quite sure that we need to be balanced in terms of the experience that he's got relative to all the other guys on the grid. And it's going to be quite a tough uphill task for him.
It's going to be quite interesting to see the season finale, specifically how it's going to be played out pretty much in Berlin. 6 races basically back to back. It's pretty crazy to see that, but it's going to be really exciting for a lot of viewers. And I think specifically for you guys, I think personally, if I was in your shoes, it'd be quite a lot of headache because you've got a lot of logistics to worry about, different tracks, different ways of having to do that. But yeah, no, that's yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely 6 races in 9 days, or you look at it a different way, more races than we've done in the season so far.
Yeah.
So it's effectively half a season in 9 days, something that would normally take us 4 months. So, from every point of view, from our point of view, preparing, our point of view, trying to make sure that we've got all the parts that are ready for those time, for the drivers, for the focus, for the mechanics. The workload doesn't change, even though it's compact into 9 days. It's still the same workload that we would have had normally over those events. And then you add in the restrictions that we have due to the COVID situation in terms of limited personnel, in terms of the social distancing and things like that. It does make it very difficult. But if I go back, those are the same situations for every single team. Everybody's got the same boundary lines in the same way that you have FIA regulations for how you can develop and run your car. And the people who do the best job at the end and win the championship at the end and finish on the podiums, I think will have deserved it, because they will have done it over a very different season, a very tricky season, but it's the season everybody's had from the start to the finish. Yeah. And there's just a number that keeps jumping up in my head, which is 288. There's 288 points available for the team that wins each race, finishes second, has pole, win, fastest lap. And so there's so much to play for. Everybody's still in the game.
Exactly.
Absolutely everybody's still in the game. And we go there knowing that Berlin's been good to us in the past, but also knowing that we've got to prove it in one of the most difficult scenarios possible to put us into the championship fight when it comes to the last race of the season.
Exactly. No, it'll be interesting to watch. And actually, just alluding to that point, and it's mainly going towards the future, do you think anything's going to change given that FIA actually gave World Championship status to Formula E coming for the next season, 2020 to 2021? Do you think anything's going to change, at least specifically in terms of how it comes for you in terms of managing the team? Is there any other expectations or anything like that that has been associated with that accreditation, or is it basically business as usual at Audi?
I think it's business as usual as Audi in a way, but the reason for that is the fact that the championship was already at a high level. And so I would say this is a certification of the level of the championship, as opposed to it will increase the level of the championship because it has the FIA World Championship badge. I know from a racing driver's point of view that I won a lot of championships that weren't fully accredited FIA World Champion. But in 2013, my last season, then won the FIA World Endurance Championship. And that is a big thing. The trophy is something that I'll keep very special because it says World Champion. Even if you had to beat all of the same people in the previous year when it wasn't certified as World Champion, and the races were just as difficult, it is important. And it's important for us as Audi as well. And so therefore, we have known it's been coming as a World Championship for a couple of years. It was quite easy to see with the trajectory of the championship, in all honesty. And we are proud that we are part of it. But, winning a title is very, very difficult. If you win it and then you go to the gala dinner at the end of the season in front of all of the other world champions and able to accept your trophy, then it's also something special.
That is excellent. Yeah, hopefully for this year and next year that Audi does well. Well, let's see how the races pan out. Finally, I'm just going to just touch upon in terms of your team's involvement within Extreme E. Now, I'm not sure if it's under your remit or if it's something that Audi is going to be partaking in, but obviously Extreme E is kind of like been the brainchild off from Formula E and has been spawned out of it, and is completely different in terms of its racing, how it pans out, the racing drivers themselves. Have you got any involvement with Extreme E at all, or is it purely just Formula E?
Chris, I've known about Extreme E for a little while, partly because one of the sort of founders was Gilles de Ferran. And Gilles has been a friend of mine since we were racing in the British Formula 4 Championship in the 80s. And Alejandro Agag and Gilles de Ferran came off with maybe a little bit of a spin-off, if you like, but an off-road version of Formula E. It's not something that we're involved in. We do, as Audi, follow every championship around about the globe, how it's evolving and what could happen in the future. But right now, our focus is very much on DTM for 2020, Formula E, obviously because of our electrification focus and how that's evolving into our road car strategy by 2025, and with an increasing number of 40% is the number that we're targeting of road car sales by 2025. So it's a huge electrification focus. And also we've got a third strand to our motorsport, which is actually our customer racing programs with our R8s and GT3, GT4, and also our TCR car, the RS3 LMS. But right now, that's where our directions are lying. What happens in the future, we'll have to wait and see, because I, like you, am interested in new championships, new situations, the new energy that's coming out of, I would say, a technical change that's allowing different things to happen. And so, you always keep an eye on what's going on and how they're going to develop.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that answer, and indeed for the interview, Allan. I'm not going to take too much more of your time. I know you got the guys on maybe your phone, WhatsApp or something like that, telling you come and join in the eSIM. So, yeah, thank you very much for your time. I truly appreciate it. And of course, it's always good talking to a Scottish legend, kind of as a national hero. So it's good. It's good seeing
thank you very much.
So I honestly wish you the best of luck in Berlin, and of course go in the future, and hopefully see you in person one day. And yeah. There we go. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chris. And I'd say the one thing that we should do next time is switch backgrounds, because you've got the cooler background than I have in this particular one. I do like it, I have to say.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Allan.
Thank you.